really intend on doing another video about David Moyes today. So every time I think it's going to die down a little bit, and I think we might concentrate on the Leverkusen game, which is why myself and Gio have done a Leverkusen preview. It sort of kicks up again, it churns up again, and I sort of understand why it's done. And it's the media keep churning it up, and then we keep feeding off it. The media churns something else up, we keep feeding off it. I guess the easiest thing is to shut up. But I've got to be honest with you, I probably should let it go, but I can't let this one go, really. I can't, because it involves somebody that I really can't stand in Sam Allardyce, and somebody who I'm sort of disappointed with in Stuart Pearce, and somebody I feel should really know better. He's basically joined the Be Careful What You Wish For brigade, but he's done it whilst I feel sort of insulting the club a little bit by getting his facts wrong, and by getting too much wrong about the club than someone who has had 3 stints at West Ham during his career. 2 as a coach and 1 as a player, getting stuff wrong that you really shouldn't be getting wrong if you spent that amount of time during your career at a football club. And so I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm more than a little bit disappointed, actually. I'm quite annoyed about it, and it certainly didn't help with Sam Allardyce being there. What am I talking about? Now, let me give you some context. Sorry, I'm ranting already. There's a podcast, I've got to get this right. I think it's called No Tippy Tappy Football Podcast with Sam Allardyce. I think that's the title of it. Anyway, I've never heard of it before. Now, during the podcast, there are 3 people sat around a table. If I've got it, I'll put the thumbnail. I'll put the picture in the thumbnail. In the middle is the interviewer, Natalie Pike. I think it's Natalie Sawyer. I think I'm assuming she's got married. And she's got rid of her maiden name. That's her married name, Natalie Pike. I assume that's so. It looked like her, but when I'm watching her, she's actually got this big micro. Basically throughout the interview, she's like this. So I think it's her. Anyway, to her left is Stuart Pearce. To her right is Sam Allardyce. Now, I'll get straight to what she said, really. And she basically said to Stuart Pearce, she said, Stuart, why are people still questioning David Moyes, do you think? But before she said that, she said, this is something we've discussed before on numerous occasions on this podcast. So it's something that clearly comes up a lot of time on that show. But why are people still questioning David Moyes, do you think? I think the first thing to say is, let's cut through the guff, right? Do you know what I mean? People. She means fans. When she's saying, why are people still questioning? Because it ain't the media, let's be fair, because they're all fully behind him. It's people is us. Why are West Ham fans still questioning David Moyes? And it's also clear when Stuart Pearce is answering, and he's talking about people, he's talking about West Ham fans. This will become clear. His answer was, you have to excuse me, I'm looking over there, I'm reading it because I don't want to get it wrong. A lot was said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but if you've listened to it, it's pretty much, well, it's not pretty much spot on. It's spot on, not word for word, but I've cut out that, I've separated the wheat from the chaff, basically. It's all chaff, actually. Anyway, he basically said, some people have a hang-up about the style of football. He's talking about West Ham fans. West Ham fans have a hang-up about the style of football. He's basically saying, like the West Ham way, we think we should be playing a more entertaining style of football. He said, I think it stems from the 1970s and the days of Bobby Moore and Trevor Brooking. It's a big sign when you walk up into the stadium. It's the Academy football sign on the door. He said, I think they're looking at all that stuff with rose-tinted glasses. Basically, the style of football, Bobby Moore, the Trevor Brooking stuff, the Academy of Football, we're looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. And he said, I think, if they're honest, they're meaning us, it's not a time that ever really existed. I mean, that is, I hate it. I hate him saying that, actually. And all the while, Sam Allardyce was heading this. We know Sam Allardyce thinks this. This is... If it was Sam Allardyce saying this, I'd pick up on it, but it wouldn't bother me because I know what he's like. He is, whilst he was West Ham manager, Sam Allardyce said, and it was either Bobby Moore's birthday or the anniversary of his passing. I can't remember which one precisely, but Sam Allardyce was manager. And Sam Allardyce was asked about it. I think there was a floral tribute before the game. Bobby's wife, Stephanie, brought some flowers onto the pitch, and there was basically, it was a symbolic and touching moment. Sam Allardyce was asked about this in the build-up to that, and he basically said, "Oh yeah," he said, "Well, I always remember Bobby Moore more as a Fulham player." Yeah, Allardyce was fully aware of his iconic status. He was fully aware of what Bobby Moore meant to West Ham fans, but the old ear cupper extraordinaire couldn't help it. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was saying. I think he's a mean guy. I do. I think Sam Allardyce is a mean man. I really do. He knew what he was doing there, and I've never. Well, clearly I've never forgotten it. I know how to hold a grudge, mate. I've never forgotten that. So I think for Stuart Pearce to say, I think if they're honest, it's not a time that ever really existed. Your West Ham way, your football, your Ron Greenwood, your retention of the ball, and funny enough, I remember when I went with Canning Town Len to do one of his documentaries, there was a lot of the old academy boys that were there. From basically the class of talking about Pike on F. Jeff Pike was there, Kerbishley was there, Alvin Martin and whatnot. And there were a couple of them who said they'd been called in by Ron Greenwood and John Lyle, who was his assistant at the time, and they had criticised somebody about their lack of heading. And I'm not going to name the player because it was a sort of private story. And he said, "Well, hold on, why are you criticising me about me heading?" He said, for the last 5 years, you have trained me not to keep the ball on the floor. He said, no wonder I'm crap at heading. You keep doing me these little drills, this pass and move. It was drummed into him. The West Ham way was drummed into him. It was what got Ron Greenwood the England job. Now, I'll tell you another story. When Harry Redknapp was at Southampton, Harry Redknapp was at Southampton, and then I can't remember the exact timing of it, but Sir Clive Woodward, who was the England rugby coach, a fine rugby coach, won the World Cup for England Rugby Union. But he somehow got appointed as director of football or something like that. He appointed somebody called, I think it was Simon Clifford or Simon Clifton. Tony Clifton, not Tony Clifton, obviously. I think it was Simon Clifford, something like that. And he was an expert in football de Saulo. And football de Saulo was this weighted ball. It was a ball, about a size 3 football, had a little weight in it. And the reason it's weighted so you can't really get the ball off the ground. They play 5-a-side games in a way to sort of drill and hone close skills in a way that improves technique. Harry Redknapp, I remember commenting on it. Harry Redknapp was asked, because obviously he'd had the Southampton job, and he said, well, this is all nonsense. They're making out like this is some newfangled thing. He said, Ron Greenwood was doing this. Ron Greenwood was doing it years ago. He said, we were doing this. He said, we were doing this stuff in the 60s and 70s. That's what Harry Redknapp said. So I just make the point that the West Ham way and our way of playing football, which had developed over a long period of time, and very much there are people that know far more about it than I do. Certainly, I mean, funny enough, probably Nigel Khan could speak for a long time about this. But there was a big think tank at West Ham, and I think Malcolm Allison was involved, if I've got that right as well. But having spoken to a lot of these players, West Ham's Academy of Football was a tangible method of playing, and it absolutely brought through players who were encouraged to play in the right way. Bobby Moore was absolutely a part of that, and an early part of that, and certainly I would suggest that Trevor Brooking and the way he played football, and that whole ethos of have a picture in your mind before you receive the ball. It was drummed into him. I've lost count of how many West Ham fans have said, West Ham players, we've been lucky to do Hammers Chat over the years, how many West Ham players have said that to me. It was clearly drummed into him. So to suggest that never happened, and so I use his phrase again, I think, if they're honest, it was never a time that really existed. Shame on you, Pearcey. Shame on you, mate. Shame. Really, really bad shame. I've got a lot of respect for him. I like him. I really like him. I do. And I still do. You know, but that's a shameful comment. Anyway, he went on and he said, in the 100-odd years of history that West Ham have got, I think they've had 3 trophies. He spoke about him being out. They did a training drill in the stadium, the London Stadium. As you know, London Stadium, the advertising hoardings, they've got the list of honours. They've got the trophies there. And he said they'd only ever won 3 trophies. Well, he got that wrong, right? Go back to it. He said, I think they've had 3 trophies. He said, basically, I said to David Moyes, I said to Dave, if you could get one of those names up there, if you could get a trophy up there, that would really be something. He said, since being the Thames Ironworks, in the 18 or whatever years, they've only won 4 trophies, and Dave was one of them. Dave Moyes. That's not true. He did win a trophy, obviously, but it's not. You know, his recollection of that is poor. And I just think if you're going to start talking about things like, if you're going to start getting the amount of trophies we won wrong, if you're going to start degrading and rubbishing Bobby Moore's impact on the club, that there was never this period where we played attacking football, it's a disgusting thing, actually. There is a reason. There is a reason. Yes, we bang on about it as West Ham fans, but there is a reason that when England won the World Cup, okay, there is a reason that West Ham played such a prominent role. There's a reason that Moore was captain. There's a reason that Hurst scored a hat-trick, and there's a reason that Martin Peters was so integral as he was. And that's because West Ham had a bloody good team. Martin Peters, by the way, he was a big part of that as well. West Ham were a footballing team. It's what we did. To such an extent that actually we used to lose games. We probably should have shut up, stopped. There's been times over the years when we've probably had a bit of a weak underbelly. We'd have had a little bit of steel to go with that flair. Then we probably would have done a bit better. But to suggest, to basically downgrade us and give us less trophies, to suggest that there was no time under Ron Greenwood or Trevor Brooking or stuff like that is mean, and it's horrible. And I absolutely hate it. And I hate the way that the question is framed. By the way, I don't think that Stuart Pearce was being overly, was trying to be mean. But the whole fact during it, Sam Allardyce was thinking, yeah, you can see, you look at his face, his smug-ass face, right? Honestly, I don't think Pearce meant it, but he should have considered that. As a man that works in the media, he probably should have picked his words and chosen his words a little bit more carefully than that, or at least done his research. Maybe he could have said, I don't know why he brought up the most successful period in West Ham's history. I don't know why he brought that up and then rubbished it. I don't know why he just didn't say, do you know what? They struggled a bit. Once they got to the late 80s and through the 90s, they struggled a bit. Why did he say that? He could have said that. He could have said that David Moyes has won the first trophy in 43 years. He would have no problem with any of that stuff. But what I found odd was he's very defensive with David Moyes. But I don't understand. Well, firstly, I don't understand why he left anyway. If everything was so hunky-dory, I don't understand why he left. Well, I sort of do. But it's not for me to say, because I don't want to get things wrong. Unlike Stuart Pearce, I don't want to get things wrong. You know, I find it weird, bearing in mind that the manner in which he supposedly left, that he's sticking up to such an extent. And look, this is a funny thing. We've seen this before. Mark Warburton, he said it everywhere, but he came on Hammer's Chat and he said he had to leave West Ham before he fell out and ruined his friendship with David Moyes, because he would have a falling out with David Moyes. He'd ruin his friendship because their footballing philosophies were so different. So he left. It's not for me to talk about the other coach who might have left at the same time, because we haven't had him on Hammer's Chat, and it's not fair to me to say. But there's enough evidence there to suggest that actually, I don't really know why he's doing this. And what's happened is now even Mark Warburton has popped up, I think, in the last month saying, "Oh, West Ham fans should be grateful for what David Moyes has done." Well, hold on a second, mate. That's not what you were saying a while back. I don't like the way the question was framed. Let's go back to that question. Stuart, why are people still questioning David Moyes, do you think? What about they do the different question? What about they do it, she does another question? Which is basically, why did you leave? Look, I guess we'd get a powder puff answer, we probably would. But why is there not more of the tougher questions? Why aren't the questions pertaining to the run of form he's on? Why isn't anybody bringing up the goals conceded? Why isn't anyone bringing up the lack of wins recently? It's as if we are constantly in like sixth position, and we're not. I just don't get it. Why is no one picking up on the fact that we've got this massive transfer outlet? I just don't get it. I don't get all that stuff. But they make out that David Moyes is like this superstar manager, and we're a top 6 club. I can't think of a top 6 team that would take David Moyes. In fact, I can't. I haven't got the league up in front of me, and I'm probably going to butcher it. I can't think of too many clubs in the Premier League that would take David Moyes. It's not even just around. Oh, forget the top six. Look, was Aston Villa, would they? No. Tottenham, no. There's no point talking about Arsenal, Man City. Of course they wouldn't. What about the teams sort of in and around us? Would Manchester United take David Moyes? Well, no, of course they wouldn't. He had that go and he failed. They wouldn't have him back. Of course not. Brighton? No, they wouldn't have David Moyes. Newcastle? Of course not. Brentford? What? Get rid of Thomas Frank and have David Moyes? No, it's getting silly. What about Crystal Palace? I don't think so. I don't look. They've had a David Moyes in Roy Hodgson. Did very well for him. It looks like they're trying to go in a different direction. Well, I guess we'll find out a lot more about Crystal Palace in the upcoming game. When you start to go down the Premier League, I don't even think Luton would swap their manager for David Moyes. I'm not saying there is nobody. I think Sheffield United would. I don't mean that to be an insult because I'm picking the bottom team. Maybe there's someone else. But my point is, if they're so bloody good, why? If he's so bloody good, why is he everywhere? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And what I don't get is why we have to be sort of insulted and basically have the media make out that we're delusional. That West Ham fans are delusional. And it's that be careful what you wish for. I mean, they're all saying it. What does that mean anyway? What a low expectation BS phrase that is. Be careful what you wish for. I'll tell you what that means. That's it. Let's curb that. Just keep you down. Keep your ambitions. How dare they? How dare they? How dare they say... It ain't. Look, I'll tell you what, there'll be a lot of people going on Thursday night, and I mean a lot of people. There's going to be 50, 60,000 people turn up Thursday night when really not many of us are expecting it. We're going there to support the team. The train ain't cheap, and that's if they run at all. They don't even let us out the stadium on a timely fashion. They stop us from getting to the bloody station. It costs an absolute fortune. How dare they? How dare they say that for all that, people are going to have to leave off work early, and some people are even going to have to pull their children out of school a little bit early. Right, but... How dare they? How dare they suggest that we might want to see something a little bit more entertaining? Or we might dare to question. As I said, it's not about the league position. They want to reframe it. And I'll tell you why they reframe it. Because they can't answer. That's why they got Sam Allardyce on there. That's why they got these people on there. Because they can't answer the questions. And they don't want to answer the questions that are more pertinent, that are more relevant about the losing streak, about the money spent, about the money wasted, about the fact that he's somehow got this reputation of being a defensive manager, but he can't defend. I mean, this is the thing. This is what the question should be. So instead of doing that, they make out that we're a bunch of thickos, that we're somehow some deluded bunch of imbeciles who should praise and bow at the altar of David Moyes. And there's actually something, there's an in-between thing, because I didn't particularly even want to talk about him today. You're probably thinking, you're going to fool me, mate, 18 minutes later. I've got stuff to do today. You're ruining my lunch break. I just look at it and I think, I don't know. Look, you know what? I've been ranting for too long about it. I probably have. But that was what I was going to say. There's a halfway house. There is a halfway house here. And that is that we're grateful for what David Moyes did. Okay, we are grateful, but we're grateful for the trophy, and we'll remember it, and it was great. But the squad's in a mess. It's in a huge mess, and at the moment we're in a predictable position we did not need to be in. And for that reason, and bear in mind the contract's coming to an end, and he's got a terrible record with money and transfers at a time when financial fair play is becoming ever more stricter. There is a halfway house where you don't hate him. I don't hate David Moyes. We're actually think, well done, Dave. Good stuff. We're increasing the capacity of the stadium again. It's time to move on. And it's as simple as that. And we should be allowed to do that. Praise the team when we win. And then when things happen that we can see a bit in advance, and it turns out they happen anyway, be a bit concerned about it, and then when we question it, we deserve better than having our questions changed by an interviewer, and it doesn't matter whether it's Natalie Pike or Alan Shearer or anybody else. If you're going to cross-reference us, if you're going to basically paraphrase us, then at least do us the honour of at least asking the questions that we're actually asking, rather than a question that you perceive that we're asking, which we're not even bothered about anyway.